Hello, welcome back. I'm Abhishek De Silva, an undergraduate of the JAM Institute for Advanced Technology. Welcome back with the project named eShop, and today I'm going to discuss about the program of the invoice page. So we can see that if I purchase this product, we can see that we redirected to the invoice page, and here it displaying the name of the customer and also the mail address and also the address of the customer and also the invoice number and purchase date, time, and then the name of the product and also the order ID and also unit price, quantity, and also total and subtotal, delivery fee, and also the grand total. Here through this print button we can print the invoice. So then let's start discussion from the saving the invoice. So in the pay now function I have called the save invoice function after the alert that we have displayed with the text payment completed and the order ID that we have displayed. Here in the save invoice function I have sent some parameters as the order ID, mail, amount, and the quantity that's stored in the variables. And if I move to the save invoice function, here I have obtained the relevant parameters through the variables, namely the order ID, mail, amount, and quantity. And then I have created a form by new form data, and I have stored that in a variable called form here. And then I have appended the order ID by the name O to the form and also the ID by the name I to the form, and also the mail by the name M, amount by the name A, quantity by the name Q to the form that we have created. And then I have created a new XML HTTP request and store that in a variable called request here. And then I have called an anonymous function on each change in state of this request, and then I have checked whether the status is equal to 200 and then the ready state is equal to 4, and if so I have obtained the response text sent from the server side and stored that in a variable called response here. And then through an if condition I have checked whether the response is equal to success. If so, I have changed the location or I have redirected the customer to the invoice.php file by binding the ID to the URL or by binding the order ID to the URL by the name ID. And if the response is not equal to success, we have displayed the response that we get back from the server side. And then through the open function I have used the post method to send the information to the server side, and I have sent the information to the save invoice process.php file, and I have used the true here to mention that I am using the Ajax method. And then I have sent the request with the form that we have created. So then let's move to the save invoice process.php file. In this file at first I have opened the PHP script, and then I have used the session start here, and then I have included the connection.php file. Through the if condition I have checked whether a session by the name U is set. If so, we have obtained the values that sent from the client side by the name O through the post method, and so that in a variable called order ID, and also the value that sent by the client side by the name I through the post method, and store that in a variable called PID here. Similarly the M, and store that in a variable called mail, and obtaining the value sent by the name A through the post method, and storing that in a variable called amount, and also the Q, and store that in a variable called quantity. And after that I have called the search function with the query select all from the product table, where ID equals to the PID that we have obtained, and storing the results we get back from the database in a variable called product results set. And then I have obtained the result that's stored in this product results set through the fetch assoc, and storing that in a variable called product data, and also have obtained the quantity that's stored in this product data and store that in a variable called current quantity. And also I have subtracted the quantity or the value that's stored in this quantity by the current quantity, and then I have stored the value that we obtained through this calculation in a variable called new quantity here. And then again I have called an IUD function with the query as update the product table and set the values the quantity to new quantity that we have created, where the ID equals PID. That here what we have done is we have updated the product table by the new quantity that we have obtained. And then here I have created a variable called D, and I have stored the new date time that we have obtained, and then I have set the new date time zone as Asia Colombo and store that in a variable called time zone here. And then I have set the time zone to the date that we have created, and then I have formatted the variable or the date that we have obtained by the year, month, date, hours, minutes and seconds, and store that in a variable called date here. And then I have called the IUD function again, and I have with the query as insert into invoice table, and I have mentioned the relevant columns here as the order ID, date, total, quantity, status, product ID, and also the user email. And I have set the values as the order ID, date, amount, quantity, and I have set the status as 0 as the default value, and then I have set the product ID and also the mail. And then I have echoed a message as success. So if I move to the invoice.php file to discuss about the program of this, here at first I have included the header.php file, and after that I have included the connection.php file, and also I have checked whether a session by the name u is set, and if so we have obtained the email that's stored in this session by the name u and storing that in a variable called user mail here. And also we have obtained the ID sent from the get method in a variable called OID here. And then for the print button I have used an on click, and I have called the print invoice function. So if I discuss about this print invoice function, here is the relevant print invoice function, and I have obtained the content that's stored in the body of the document and store that in a variable called restore page. And then I have created a variable called page, and I have stored the content that is stored inside the element with the ID called page. And then I have in a HTML as the content of this body of the document as the value that's stored in this page variable. And then I have called the print function here, and after that I have in HTML as the body of this document the restore page again. And here we can see the relevant ID with the ID as page. And here again I have used the PHP script, and I have called a search function with the query as select all from the user has address table, where user email equals to the user email that we have obtained, and storing the values that we obtained from the database in a variable called address result set. And also I have obtained the result that's stored in this address result set through the fetch as and stored in a variable called address data. And after that I have echoed the first name that's stored in this session by the name u, and the last name that's stored in this session by the name u, the first name and last name of the user as the name of the customer. And then similarly I have echoed the line 2 and line 1 that's stored in this address data as the address of this customer, and also the umail that we have stored in this variable called umail as the mail address of the relevant customer. And then again I have used the PHP script, and I have called the search function with the query as select all from the invoice table, where order ID equals to the OID, and storing the relevant results we get back from the database in a variable called invoice result set. And after that I have obtained the information or the result that's stored in this invoice result set through the fetch as and store that in a variable called invoice data. And then after that I have obtained the invoice ID that's stored in this invoice data and echoed that as the invoice number. And then I have echoed the date that is stored in this invoice data as the purchase date and time. And here too I have echoed the invoice ID that is stored in this invoice data, and then here I have echoed the OID that's stored, or the value that's stored in this variable called OID. And then after that again I have used the PHP script and I have called a search function with the query select all from the product table, where ID equals to the product ID that's stored in this invoice data, and I have obtained the values that stored in this product resource through the fetch assoc and store that in a variable called product data here. And after that I have echoed the title that's stored in this product data as the name of the product, and then I have echoed the price that's stored in this product data as the price of the relevant product, and then the quantity that's stored in this invoice data I have echoed the relevant quantity, and then after that I have echoed the total that's stored in the invoice data. And then again I have used the PHP script and I have called a search function with the query as select all from the city table, where city ID equals to the city ID that's stored in the address data, and then we have obtained the result that's stored in the city resource that through the fetch assoc and stored that in a variable called city data here. And I have created a variable called delivery and I have assigned the value as 0 to it, and then through the if condition I have checked whether the district ID that's stored in the city data is equal to 2. If so, I have assigned the delivery fee column that's stored in this product data to the variable called delivery. And then if it comes to the errors of this, it means the district ID is not equal to 2, and if so, we have assigned the delivery fee other that is stored in this product data as the delivery. And then we have created a variable called T and we have assigned the total that is stored in this invoice data, and also we have created a variable called G here, and then we have subtracted the delivery that's stored in the value that's stored in this delivery variable by the value that is stored in this T variable, and then we have echoed the value that's stored in this G variable as the subtotal, and then we have echoed the value that's stored in this delivery as the delivery fee, and we have echoed the variable T as the grand total. And this is the process related to the invoice page, and then let's meet you in the next video, and bye for now.